In the first part of prospecting, and most of what I've really shown with prospecting, I haven't really gone and give it a proper run through of what it means to actually go out and prospect and do what I've been talking about doing. Now, with the addition of asteroids, it's a little easier to do that because you can fly around at a much higher rate of speed, and you can source a lot more different parts of the planet. Mining little rocks on the surface seems a little odd because you wouldn't really mine a rock. You would typically drill down to a vein within the surface and mine the vein, which is what they've shown us in all of their video material, which is gameplay that I know at the moment doesn't quite exist. So mining the surface isn't bad, but it's not quite as fun because it takes forever to hit up a couple of different rocks unless you find a good area. Whereas mining asteroids, you're able to maximize your afterburners and you're really able to get a wider array of what's going on. It doesn't mean every asteroid is going to be a hot ticket, but it means that you can fly quickly out and around and find another source of rock if you don't like the one you found. Now, my main complaint in the last video, and one that I've always had since the Prospector was introduced, is that the filtration system does not work. So my mentality was, well, instead of just not having it, you could have applied a simple algorithm that would throw out, say, 75% of all the inert material that you would collect from a sample. So in this one, it looks like about 8% of this rock is actually mineable material that I want. The rest of the rock throws 75% of that away. That way I can use the filtration system, quote unquote, and actually mine the rock. I always liken it back to somebody who's prospecting for gold or panning for gold in the river. They're looking for an area to find a good vein or something like that that might allude to there being more gold there. And then they would use hoppers and sifters, dump a bunch of dirt on there, sift through it, pull the part they want, chuck the rest. This ship must be capable of doing something like that in some way, otherwise it's not a good experience. Now, I QT'd in from Ulazar, and in this particular video, I just turned around and started flying back at the first area of the asteroid belt. So I flew vertically up into the asteroid field, and then I started flying back towards Crusader. On my way, I found 5-6 rocks that I sampled and then proceeded to break apart as much as possible. Now, in this, I could be a lot more strict with what I pull, but that kind of is the only way to really make a hefty profit in here. You can get lucky and find a really good rock, and in one of the videos where I had my webcam mess up again, I was able to find some gold and titanium and actually made close to 3,000 UEC on one rock, which was a very good haul. This time, I set the goal for myself that I would not actually collect anything unless it was 20% material or greater in the sample. So anything that's not 20%, I'm not touching. There's aluminum at 23%, that's mine. Now that's still not the best way to handle it, but if you go through and you look for samples that give you a minimum amount, you can actually sample a fairly good amount of material and then leave the rest. You spend some time breaking apart all of the rocks to see if you get a lucky drop like that laranite I had a few moments ago that was 100% laranite. That's a great find. But it was a small sample, so I didn't exactly get much from it. But if you find a lot of high-end things in here, that's really good. Those 14 and 13%, I should be taking those. But because of the limitation within the saddlebags, I just can't. I can't spare the space for it. I'm already 35% full, essentially, and I've only taken a few minor samples. So that's why I really harp on that. You need to give us some ability to actually take more in. And I'm tying that back into the fact that I'm pointed at Crusader and I'm flying back at Crusader because I have no distance. So for right now, most of the players don't have a problem with the fact that you can't throw away a good chunk of that inert material like you really would in real life because you have no investment in the distance it took to get here. You don't really have to plan your movements. You don't have to think about it. You can just zip over to Yella, find an empty part of the asteroid field, hit a few rocks up, zip back, sell, come back. I could make 3 or 4 trips like this if I wasn't really too strict in about an hour, and I could make a pretty decent amount of money. When the game launches and there's more going on, you may run into pirates, you may run into other things that this ship is just not equipped to defend itself from. Which means that you either have to run with friends, or you need to scout the area out ahead of time. which is why scanning with a ship like not a prospector, a 315, or even a Carrack, or even an Aquila, or anything that's an exploratory ship, should have scanning capabilities that allows you to map out these things and find some of these materials that if you scanned it, it's in your databanks for that session. You can either save it and sell it, or you can go mine it. So I could fly through this asteroid field at high speed in my 315, pinging away at the asteroids, find a couple high-yield samples, go back, look at my data, get in my prospector, and come in here and surgically target those rocks and get a better feeling for what it is. Now, I'm not expecting the 315 to look at it and tell me exactly what percentages of every minute rock has, but it should be able to tell me 50% of this rock is mineable material, or this is a metal, this is a high-yield metal, this is a low-grade metal, there's nothing in this rock, something like that, that would kind of give me an idea that, hey, maybe this one's worth looking at. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It may tell me, hey, this is a potential high-yield candidate, but it only had maybe 5% gold in the rock, and the gold is what pinged back really hot. Well, that's fine. I would rather have that opportunity to go source the rocks and plan it out. Likewise, because the 315 or other ships are much faster or more able to defend themselves, they can make a quick pass and get the hell out of there. So if it's a hot area that you really don't want to fly a mining vessel into, you can do so without worry of repercussions or getting destroyed and losing your hull. Now, if you apply what's currently in the PU, and even looking into Hurston that's in the PTU right now and coming very soon, we may have to fly long distances to get to these areas that we want to mine and source material from. Even if you look at the map, flying out to the truck stop takes about, 15-20 seconds. That's not bad, but that's pretty close. When they originally flew to Hurston in the other demo, it was like 10 minutes or something, 10-12 minutes of actual flight time in quantum travel. And that was within one system, and it's not even the farthest planet. If you apply that logic to these situations, you fly 10 minutes somewhere to go prospect, you expect to spend some time in that field sampling a lot of different aspects of what's going on out there, like I'm doing here, other than overcharging and blowing one up. But I'm being kind of stingy in what I'm taking, only looking for something that's 25% yield or greater. If I was flying out even farther, I would be even more stingent because of the invested time to get way out there. I want to make sure that what I'm grabbing is high yield, and that's my problem with the filtration system. When you invest 20-30 minutes flying somewhere before you even get there to mine, and then you get to mine for 15 minutes and your best yield is 75% garbage, that seems pretty crappy, and that's not how a miner would do it. It just becomes a non-sustainable aspect of gameplay because you're not, either you need to make a crap load more money, or you're not really going to have an ROE, a return on investment, in what you're doing out there. Now, you may make money, but is it worth the time? Because you're flying real time out to these places, you're spending real time scouting everything out and then mining something for a couple pittance of UEC, would you do that? No, I wouldn't. In real life, I wouldn't either. And that's why a lot of people who thought, I'm going to go pan for gold, gave up quickly, because it takes work. It does take an investment. But you don't pan for gold by just grabbing a big chunk of dirt, stuffing it in your pocket, and hoping there's a sliver in it. You look at that dirt, you discard the garbage, and you take, surgically, exactly what you need. And that's my fear with this gameplay right now. We're close to Olazar, so I can go back and forth, and I can source a ton of material. Even Hurston, being a short hop away, might make sense to go grab a few small things, fly to Olazar to sell it because it's not in the same area, and the distance might make it worth more, depending on what rare materials are found in every area. And that becomes another thing. Maybe the local systems won't have a lot for you to mine, and you're going to have to fly a distance to find rich deposits of gold, titanium, and other rare materials. And if you are investing that time, I really don't know how many players are going to be happy for a long time to go that distance just to grind out a few UEC in mining. If you're bringing in an Orion or a larger ship, they can just gobble up a bunch of those, refine the material, and sell it at a fortune. It's no big deal for them because they're a full, massive, self-sustained ship that can do 100% of the refining and the processing, whereas this little ship, just a prospector. So in doing these little prospects, this was one of the faster ones that I did because I had some decent rocks. The first one I did was like a 45-minute haul out there, and I managed to bring back a good amount of money. The second one, I got that lucky rock. And then this one, I managed to find some decent rocks. It wasn't great, but as I'd already shot this 3 times, I kept having webcam issues before I finally just unplugged my webcam and bought a new one. It was difficult to really want to go invest another 45 minutes into doing it. Now, if I'm doing it just to play it and have fun instead of a focused video, then yeah, I'm more willing to do it, and I wouldn't have potentially mined the whole thing. But as you can see, some of these rocks separate into very rich deposits, like this one. It started out as a 5% rock, but I ended up getting a 20% sample out of it. So there's lots of different little things that you have to consider and deal with this. Now, I know mining is, again, still in very early stages, and we might be able to mine a lot more richness out of the rocks when we get farther into the system and the full aspect of mining is actually implemented, whereas right now it's just rudimentary. But that's just my fear with the way things are currently implemented and their methodology. SIG has often gotten themselves in a lot of trouble and caused a lot of delays because they try to overbuild the system by ridiculous amounts when they could simply apply something very basic using the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. It works. And we don't want to lose sight of the whole point of the game. Yes, we want a realistic Citizen of the Stars game, but we also want to have fun. And I've tried EVE Online, and I've played a lot of other games, and they just weren't fun for me because I didn't have the time to invest in the ridiculous amounts of things that you had to do to get anywhere in those games. That's not fun for me. I use games as a bit of escapism and relaxing after a stressful day at work, so being able to go mine for an hour, come back with 4 saddlebags with quadruple the amount of cash that I could do now, or even 10 times the amount because I'm throwing away 78% wasteful material. So take that 78% and cut that by 75%, and I would have made probably 12 to 15,000 UEC, if not double that, on this one haul. And this is a pretty good haul, so I wasn't really unsatisfied with what I'd done. I could have just been more picky. The more picky you are, the longer it takes. And that comes back to sifting that raw crap out. So you can see that what little titanium I found really earned me a good amount of money. So I love mining. I'm going to keep doing it. I thank you guys for watching. And we will see you next time, where I will talk about the lag issues I believe I have mostly identified and fixed, as well as some of the webcam stuff. So we'll see you then.